Well, the government has announced it hopes all primary-age pupils in England can go back to school for a month before the summer break, and is again advising that vulnerable children and those of essential workers should return now. The goal is for children to restart in nursery, reception, year 1, year 6 on June the 1st, depending on the risk level of coronavirus. There's no return planned for England's secondary school children before the summer break. But teachers are being asked to allow for face-to-face time before then with those pupils who are facing key exams next year. Now, in Scotland and Wales, there is no change, no planned return dates, with Scotland's First Minister saying that the beginning of next month would be too soon for primary school classes to start there. And in Northern Ireland, the Education Minister has said it will be September when pupils are likely to begin returning to school. The teaching unions have expressed serious concerns about the government's plans to restart primary education in England. Our education correspondent Elaine Dunkley has been getting the reaction of parents and teachers in Cheshire.
Even with just a few children, it's difficult. Soon pupils at Hertford Manor Primary will have to learn a new skill: how to keep their distance. Classes will reopen to all children in reception, year 1 and year 6.
How on earth do we get 30 children in a classroom and make them socially distanced? You can't do it. I'd like to see the children wearing facial coverings, because if they then cough, it won't go onto the desk they're working at or onto the surface. I'd like to see teachers wearing it where possible.
Miss Fisher's is going to clean the table.
Schools have remained open for children of key workers and those deemed as vulnerable. So why are certain age groups being prioritised to return first? For nurseries, reception and year 1, it's a critical time in early years development. For those in year 6, it's about preparing them for secondary school. But parents here are worried about safety.
A lot of parents are scared that bringing the children back, it's going to increase the spread. One of our concerns, keeping the girls in school, was that we would potentially, from the hospital, acquire COVID, bring it back, pass it on unknown to our children, then bring it in and spread it further out in the community.
I don't know how you can open the schools and you can't guarantee people's safety. It's unfair. My daughters are coping fine at home. They're quite happy and bubbly at home, but they're really desperate to come back to school and see the friends. That's a big part for them to come back and see the friends and play with the friends, and I don't see how that's going to be possible because you can't enforce social distancing very well with children, I wouldn't have thought.
Schools are key in ending the coronavirus lockdown. Reopening them is as much about the economy as it is about education. In order for the country to go back to work, children need to go back to school.
It's now been 8 weeks. My husband and I both run small businesses, so trying to keep both those businesses viable and have both the children at home and try and do some homeschooling has created like a really high pressure environment.
The government says it wants to get pupils back to school as soon as it's safe to do so, with smaller classes and hygiene a high priority. Drop-off and pick-up times will be staggered and outside spaces will be used to the full. More reassurance.
Observations to colleagues. The hearing may be watched online. An unedited recording will be available on the committee's website, www.helpsenate.gov. Witnesses are participating by video conference in a one-time exception. Some senators, including the chairman, are participating by video conference. Senators, we've been advised, may remove their masks, talking to the microphone when they're in the hearing room as they're 6 feet apart. I'm grateful to the Rules Committee, Sergeant at Arms, the Press Gallery, the Architect of the Capitol Police, committee staff, Chun Sheck and Evan Griffiths, all for their hard work to keep us safe. At our hearing last Thursday, I said that all roads back to work and back to school run through testing, and that what our country has done so far on testing is impressive, but not nearly enough. Over the weekend, Senator Schumer, the Democratic leader, was nice enough to put out a tweet quoting half of what I said. He left out the other half, the impressive part. So let me say again what I meant by that. When I said impressive, I meant that according to the Johns Hopkins University study, the United States has tested over 9 million Americans for COVID-19. That's twice as many as any other country. We don't know what China has done. And it's more per capita than most countries, including South Korea, which many members of our committee had cited as an example of a country that had tested well. According to Dr. Deborah Birx, the United States will double testing in the month of May, which should get us up to about 10 million tests conducted. Now, here's what I mean by impressive here in Tennessee, where I am today. First, anyone who's sick, first responder, or healthcare worker can get tested. Our Governor, Bill Lee, is also testing every prisoner, every resident and staff member in a nursing home. He's offered weekend drive-through testing. He's done specific outreach for testing to low-income communities. A Tennessean can get a free test at the local public health department. The governor's slogan is, if in doubt, get a test. Governor Lee sent his testing goals in May to the federal government, as every state has done. The federal government is helping him make sure that he has enough supplies in case he has trouble getting them through the labs and the other commercial sources. As a result, our state has tested about 4% of the population. The governor hopes to increase that by 7% in May. That's one of the best in the country. This impressive level of testing is sufficient, we believe, to begin phase one of going back to work. But as I said last week, it's not nearly enough to provide confidence to 31,000 students and faculty members who we hope will show up at the University of Tennessee campus in August when school starts. Last week, I talked with UT Knoxville Chancellor Don D. Plowman about that. We said, what would persuade those 31,000 students, as well as the 50 million K through 12 students in the country and the other 5,000 university students, what will persuade them to go back to campus in August? That's where the new Shark Tank comes in. Dr. Collins at the National Institutes of Health calls it RADx. We had our hearing about that on Thursday. It's a really remarkable scientific exercise to take a few early stage concepts that are swimming around in what we call that competitive Shark Tank and see if Dr. Collins and his associates can find a few new technologies to create millions of new tests that will scale up rapidly and make it more likely that students will go back to school in August. For example, the FDA authorized last week its first diagnostic test using saliva that a person provides at home instead of a nose swab or blood. It authorized its first antigen test. We're hearing a lot about those, like the ones used for flu or strep throat, which involves the swabbing of a nose, and you can get the result in just a few minutes. Another proposal, not yet approved, is to put in your mouth a sort of lollipop sponge. Take a photo of that with your cell phone and send that to your doctor. If it lights up, you're positive. Or the university might send that saliva lollipop to a nearby laboratory, which could be a gene sequencing laboratory, which can deal with thousands of those samples overnight. That same process could occur at a middle school. It could occur at a factory. Of course, anyone testing negative one day can test positive the next, but such widespread screening of entire campuses, schools, or places of work will help identify those who are sick, trace down those who are exposed, and that in turn should help persuade the rest of us to go back to school and back to work. In addition to more testing, I expect Dr. Fauci to talk to us about additional treatments that will be available to reduce the risk of death, and the administration's plan to do something that our country's never done before, which is to start manufacturing a vaccine before it actually has been proven to work in order to speed up the result in case it does work. Those vaccines, those treatments are the ultimate solution. But until we have them, all roads back to work and school go through testing.
It's been hard to not hug each other.
In the breaks, they can only play a few kids together.
How many times do you wash your hands a day now?
5 to 6. Hi, Scott. And good day.
They're not worried about the virus at all. When they came back, we had lots of activities to try to make them not worry. But they did worry. So we had to give up on that.
It wasn't needed.
Not at all.
normally they sit 2 and 2. The class of 20 has been cut down to 2 groups of 10.
So the red tape running down the middle effectively separates the children off from each other, and both sides are now not allowed to mix, so they're kept separate during the whole day.
As you can see, there's only a few kids in here, so that's quite easy. But I have to do them twice, because half of the kids are in here and half of the kids are in the other room.
It's playtimes that feel the most different, because the classes are broken down into even smaller groups, so the kids just have 4 other children that they're allowed to play with, and they're only given one part of the playground that they're allowed to be in.
You have this group over there, they are only supposed to play with each other. This group here is only supposed to play with each other.
My name's Sky, I'm 7 years old. We keep our distance when we play. You can't play catch.
What do you play instead?
We hula hoop.
They're finding it a little bit boring, but they're also good at telling each other, oh, remember you're not supposed to go there. Whenever they go outside and come in again, they need to go and wash their hands with soap and water, of course.
How many times do you wash your hands a day now?
5 to 6.
It was great for me. She started school so I could work throughout the morning and have peace and quiet. Also for her, because she really wanted to go back. She actually came home and said that she'd had the best day in a long time.
A lot of parents wrote to me that they had some kind of concern, some few parents that are so concerned that they wouldn't let their child come in the first week. After 2 weeks, they've rejoined and it's been no problem. Actually, it's the kids down there at home who said, why can't I go?
So what's the hardest thing for them, do you think?
Staying away from her friends.
This is my best friend and she's 7. It has been hard to not hug each other.
She says you can't hug each other, so you have to hug yourself. That's why. It's a new situation, new rules. You need to give them comfort. You need to guide them. It's a very beautiful Danish song, actually. The direct translation is when the light returns, it's back. The light is back.
First day back to school in this Swiss town after nearly a 2-month break, and there are mixed emotions. Classes are only half full, desks are regulation 2 meters apart, but still, you can't be sure.
I think we've had our dose of anxiety. The pupils feel it too, as well as certain parents, so it's difficult to get back to the way it was, but I think we need to trust the authorities.
In northern Italy, where the European outbreak really began, they're taking things even slower, not even using a school facility but a public gym as a pilot scheme, using a small group of 6 to 10-year-olds to see if it's even possible to socially distance small children who are used to wanting to be close together.
We have to find a way that these children can play together and we can go to work. We've now been at home for 2 months. Their grandfather can't take care of them every day, all day. They're still small. They need to be with other children. They really need this.
Same story in France. The return to work, to whatever sort of normality you call this, is leaving parents with hard choices. In Nice, they were doing everything they could to reassure parents.
We've done everything to make sure the sanitary rules are respected. We're going to spend a lot of time washing our hands, and we have to be attentive to the cleanups conducted in schools.
Many people desperately want their kids to have some structure back in their lives, and they're being asked to leave the house and work if they can. These are hard choices with uncertain science.
I'm not that worried. I've explained to my daughter what needs to be done. In any case, I had to go back to work in childcare.
5 months without school would have been difficult. That's what was scaring me.
Inevitably, there's a lot of pushback. In the UK, nearly 500,000 people have signed a petition calling on parents to have a choice about whether they have to send children back, potentially next month. And so too in France. The mayor of Nice couldn't agree more.
It's important for families to have a choice. For all the families who wanted their kids to go back to school, I've wanted it for them to do it in the best possible conditions.
Excited children, totally understandable. Anxious parents.